The first survival horror type game I remember playing was Silent Hill 2 on the PlayStation 2. That game came out in like 2002, but I didn't play it until 2008. The game was given to me along with a box of older PS2 games with my cousin. I didn't know anything about survival horror games because up until that point I'd only really played games like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto. Loading up the game, I remember being shocked, not even at the enemies in the game, which were definitely fucking scary, but at the atmosphere and the setting of the game itself. It was dark and it was claustrophobic and you were constantly surrounded by fog if you went outside. Looking back at it, the puzzles in the game weren't that hard, but I was 9 when I played it and was basically a fucking retard when it came to games like that. The scariest scene of that entire game was when James was in that butterfly room and he has to reach his hand in that fucking hole in the wall to grab that key when he suddenly pulls his arm out, like just pulls it out. You're a fucking troll, Konami, because I honestly thought I'd crapped my pants. Fast forward a few months, and I get a copy of Resident Evil Outbreak. I'd seen the movies, but up until this point I never played any of the Resident Evil games. For those of you that don't know, the Outbreak spin-offs were set in Raccoon City around the time that the second and the third game are taking place. Their characters are just a group of survivors trying to escape, and the first game has 5 episodes. I thought Silent Hill 2 was a pain in the ass, but I at least had help from my sister's fiance at the time. With Outbreak, I was all alone. There was multiplayer for this one, but by the time I got my hands on the game, the servers had been shut down already. I managed to get through it and barely managed to beat the game. It wasn't too long after that Resident Evil 4 released, and to this day, I don't think I've spent more time on a single player game. There's no way I could count how many times I beat it. I was basically speedrunning the game without really knowing what speedrunning was yet. You may be thinking to yourself, Shane, the title of this video is Resident Evil 2, a review. Not, hey, look at Shane's nerdy fucking childhood. And I get that. But I'm giving you this backstory so you know just how excited I was for Resident Evil 2. Because from 2009 to 2012, when I beat Resident Evil 6, I was obsessed with all of the Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 6 kinda harsh in that vibe. And the only one I hadn't played up until that point was Resident Evil 2. So when I saw on YouTube that it was being remade for current gen consoles, I was ecstatic. I had to play it. And at the time of writing this, the date's February 12th, so it's been a few weeks since the release of the game. It's taken so long because I wanted to be sure I finished the game and could appreciate it for what it is. I just read a review yesterday on Mashable.com where the author had only completed one of the character's storylines. You can't write a review if you didn't even complete the game. And the same thing goes for the people who reviewed the game the day of, the day after, even a week after. It just doesn't happen. Considering my intro just took 3 minutes, it's time to get to the actual review. The problem is I don't know where to start. The game is great. There aren't a whole lot of negative things to say about it, though I couldn't review the game and not talk about the one thing I've noticed. My biggest problem was with Leon and Ada's relationship. Because first off, how the fuck does Leon, for almost the entire game, believe that Ada is a fucking FBI agent? Have you seen her dress? Can someone explain that to me? Not only that, but the dialogue between Leon and anyone other than Ada just felt shallow to me. The best example that comes to mind are the interactions between Leon and Marvin. He's that injured cop you meet in the station. He and Leon take on a typical experienced older guy rookie relationship type cliche, and it just felt off to me. It didn't feel like a good enough reason for him to care about Leon. The only interaction I genuinely liked was between Leon and the owner of the gun shop. That scene was great. That's when the game felt real to me, at least on Leon's side. On Claire's side, the interaction between her and Marvin felt good. Him mentioning her brother and how she has to find him, and her relationship with Sherry was kinda sweet. Sherry's kind of a fucking badass. It sucks her parents are such garbage. That's the most glaring problem I noticed with the game. It's really the only problem I had with the game was the story itself. Anything else I'd say was a problem was just me needing to get good. Like when you have Mr. X chasing you while you're trying to run through a hall that has multiple lickers and zombies in it. Oh my god! Speaking of Mr. X, he was the best antagonist in this game, and he didn't even have to say a word. The idea that he was always following you filled me with a sense of urgency with everything I did. There was no waiting in a safe room to think or to solve a puzzle, because with Mr. X on the prowl, there were no safe rooms. If you think you're safe, nah, he'll just bust through a fucking wall on you.
X gon' give it to you.
All of the enemies are interesting in this game. Apart from Mr. X, the lickers are probably the most memorable. I remember playing as Claire in the lab towards the end of the game and just stood and watched one for a bit. You can definitely see why they're called lickers. If I had to say which enemy gave me the most problems though, it was those fucking vine plant zombie things in the lab. If you didn't have a knife or a grenade, they would just do this Venus flytrap thing, looking animation all over your face, and they would just maul you. I watched Leon and Claire die more than a few times. The level design is good. The levels can feel big and confusing, but once you've unlocked the paths you need, that you just whiz by pretty easily. There's 3 main sections, them being the police station, the sewers, and Nest, which is the underground lab owned by Umbrella. Claire has a little section with her and Sherry that is in the orphanage down the street, but it's not long enough to really consider it a whole level. But the nice thing is they've implemented a system where if you search everything in the room, that room on the map will turn blue. If not, it'll stay red. It really helps when you're searching for a key or an object to open a path to continue the game. Sound design is also excellent. Walking through a dark hallway and hearing the moans of the zombies while the sound of Mr. X's footsteps are nearby is definitely panic-inducing. If I had to choose a favorite moment in the game, it would be in the end where the countdown starts and you have to escape the lab. The music that plays is incredible. It really adds to the sense of urgency you feel, apart from, trying to not get blown up. The biggest difference between the original and this remake is the removal of the tank controls and the fixed camera angles. The camera angles didn't bother me so much in the older one, as it kind of added to a sense of paranoia almost, but the tank controls were fucking ass. This plays closer to how Resident Evil 4 played, and I've already gone on about how much I loved that game. They added the mechanic where if you stand still, the crosshairs will get smaller and your shots will be more accurate, which gives you a reason to stop moving. But if you need to constantly reposition like in the boss fights, you'll still be accurate enough to hit what you need to hit. I don't want to spoil anything, but the final boss fight with Mr. X is just fantastic. When I first fought him, I pretty much only had pistol ammo. I died like 5 or 6 times minimum. But finishing him off was so satisfying. He chased you almost the entire game, and then you just blow his ass up. Overall, I love this game, and I plan on putting even more hours into it. The controls, the music, and definitely the enemies make this game worth buying and gives me hope for future Resident Evil titles. I still can't see myself playing this as much as I did 4. Sorry, Capcom.
Just like I said we would.